first. And I have a proposed committee sub on that. You have a committee sub in your packet, but I mean, you have a bill in your packet, but you should have been sent your proposed committee sub in the last little while. So we're going to be working on House Bill 942, the proposed committee sub, and I'll explain what the bill does. So 942, y'all have probably heard, this has been heard around the Capitol and here for the last year or so. This would allow your investor-owned utilities to use their unused broadband or fiber capacity or unused enhanced grid investment capacity for the use of broadband purposes. They would not be getting into the broadband business, but in fact would be leasing. This bill allows them to lease that unused fiber capacity to a third party broadband operator, broadband provider, to provide broadband services to unserved and underserved areas in the state. Specifically, and you know, I think I can do this, investor-owned utilities in this state. And what this bill refers to is Mississippi Power Company and Entergy. They are the investor-owned utilities. The co-ops have no interest in this bill. We did their bill back in 2019, so let me say that the co-ops are not in this bill. Again, this bill would allow these investor-owned to get into the broadband business. There are protections in there for these providers on easements and things like that. They do not have to go back to the landowners and ask for permission for easements or anything, although there is a remedy in the bill for landowners to have a remedy in the courts in their counties if they do feel like that they, if and when these broadband providers may use it already out there commodity or in the future to access these unserved and underserved areas of the state. This bill does have some speed restrictions in it, 25 megs down, 3 megs up, that we are asking them if they cannot, we would restrict them under this current legislation, this proposed committee sub, that if they are, would restrict them from going into areas where there is a 25.1, 25.3 provider also. This is the first, let me say this, this is the first bite at the apple for this. This has been, I've worked with the investor owns on language. I've worked with the cable companies. I've worked with telephone. We know that we all are probably, this is going to be a work in progress. I would like for us, that's what the bill does basically. It provides them the opportunity to get into the broadband business, but I would like to ask the committee to, let's keep this moving. Let's keep it alive, and let's, at the end of the day, it's about getting broadband out there to those who don't have it. And this is a mechanism to do that. Okay. This is a mechanism to do that. Is it a perfect piece of legislation? Probably not, but not many are when they first start out. So without going through all of the bill, that's what the bill does essentially. I'll be glad to go through it section by section if you want me to, or I'll entertain questions at this time if anybody has any questions. Okay, I don't see. Gentleman from Ocean Springs, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just real quick, if I may, what are we trying to do with just the restrictions, Mr. Chairman?
Repeat the question. I'm sorry, I didn't.
What are the restrictions that you mentioned?
Yes.
What's the purpose for the restrictions? What are we trying to?
So in trying to be fair across the board, so let me say this, as we all know, these investor-owned utilities are utilities that this infrastructure has been put into place by ratepayers who pay electric rates, okay? They are rate regulated utilities. So this infrastructure, this broadband capacity that's there has been put into place by the ratepayers of these districts. Now, I will say, and this is an important part of the bill, at the end of the year, if this legislation is passed and this part stays in the bill, ratepayers will be given an annual credit on any revenues derived from the lease of these broadband capacity. But on the front end right here, gentlemen, we are trying to keep it as fair as we can because they are rate regulated and because this commodity has been put into place by ratepayers, trying to keep a level playing field as we can with their competition. Not that I'm not against competition, but on the front end, we feel like that we need to try to at least come out with something that does have some safeguards in there for those who are having to pay, for these private companies that are having to pay for putting broadband out there versus a rate regulated utility whose commodity has been put out there by the ratepayers. Does that answer your question, gentlemen?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. And I want to remind all members of the committee that this is a work in progress. Obviously, there's a lot of interest on both sides of the coin on this, on the investor-owned side, and then the other side also. Probably not in any shape, form, or fashion have I addressed in this bill all of the things that we may need to work through. But again, I want to ask you, let's at least keep it alive, because at the end of the day, it's about getting broadband out there to as many people as we can. And I agree with their concept on what they're trying to do. And so I'm going to, I think this is a good thing, but there may be some nuances we have to work through. I'm going to recognize the gentleman from Hines, Representative Stamps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the discourse and the explanation of the thoroughness of the bill. Is there any appetite from yourself or other members of this committee on allowing for municipalities who have who provide utility services to provide broadband as well?
Gentlemen, good question. No, not in this bill. There's not anything addressed. I have heard conversation around these halls and out in the public that at some point that municipalities may have an interest in getting away from maybe some franchise agreements that they may have, current agreements that they may have with some agreements back in their municipalities. But this bill, as it's written now, does not address that, gentlemen. All right, is that Representative Rosebud?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Does any of the other utilities, like the co-ops or the co-ops or cable company, have restrictions similar to this that's related to this bill?
Well, so in 2019, we passed House Bill 366, which was the Mississippi Broadband Enabling Act, which allowed the co-ops to do essentially what this bill does now. They had some different provisions or different restrictions in there that they had to do, setting up subsidiaries and things like that. But as far as this particular bill, we feel like we have addressed, what the co-ops did, or what the co-ops have done and are doing. And there's no provision in here for the co-ops to do that. We'll recognize the gentleman from Pike, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure I'm clear on something. You stated that these companies, they will not have to seek the permission of the landowners?
Well, so currently the way the easements are written now, when like Mississippi Power and when Mississippi Power and Entergy, these investor-owned companies, when they ran their electrical infrastructure, their cables or their wires or set up poles or anything else, they negotiated at that time with the landowners to cross their land or anything, okay? This does not allow, it doesn't keep the landowner from seeking remedy, saying that, Mississippi Fiber, say one of these investors has run fiber across their land now, and it's currently sitting there. It doesn't say that the landowner can't seek remedy for that, but it's also saying that the company does not have to go back to that owner and negotiate. He's not required to go back and negotiate, since they already have an agreement in place for electrical easement or right of way. They don't have to go back for the broadband. But now it does leave it open for the landowner to have that remedy in his county court if he does. Does that answer your question, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Rosebud, have you got a Representative Rosebud? I see your hand. Okay.
That probably was from earlier, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask this, this bill, this is the first bite at the apple. I understand that there's, probably another bill coming from the other end of the building, and let's just keep it alive, because at the end of the day, we are all besieged and bombarded with requests to get broadband to the rural areas and areas that don't have it. And I'm telling you, as far as the policy of this, what we're trying to do ultimately is expand broadband any way we can. I'm all for it. I think they have a great idea how we get there, and try to keep it as fair as we can, and to keep it as inexpensive as we can for the ratepayer. That's what we want to do. Any other questions? Okay, so the way I'm going to do this, instead of asking for ayes, I'm just going to ask for all that are opposed to hit your hand or wave your hand or something for a few minutes. Okay, I don't see any opposed, so I move that we adopt the proposed committee sub. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, none opposed. Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Okay, the next bill, House Bill 505, ladies and gentlemen. This is a bill that came out, a lot of states are doing this. This is the Mississippi Broadband Accessibility Act. This essentially establishes a state-run grant program to where different organizations, municipalities, and things like that could apply for grants through broadband providers. Broadband providers could do it or whatever. It does not have any money in this. So let me say this, there's no money in this. It is subject to the appropriations of the legislature, but I will say a lot of states are doing this, and I think we need a mechanism that if and when the legislature hopefully decides to put money into a broadband grant program, that we will have the mechanics in place already to receive that money and then to get it out there. And this legislation is modeled a lot like some of the other surrounding states around us that have done this and are being very successful with it. And with many of y'all, many of my colleagues, not just some of y'all, but many of my colleagues here in the House, through the course of the late summer and fall, I either attended or attended virtually town hall meetings where I made a commitment that we would come forward with a grant program. And we're going to really try to focus this on the rural areas where there is absolutely, if and when we have any money appropriated by the legislature for this program, going to really try to focus on those areas where there is not any broadband service at all. So here again, I think this is a good piece of legislation. I think, again, it's just another stab at us trying to get broadband out to the furthest reaches, or as a lot say, to the man at the end of the line. And this would do it. I'd like to keep it alive. Let's try to work it through the process, try to work with the chairman of Ways and Means, try to work with the chairman of Appropriations and the House leadership to try to find some dollars to put into this. And that's what the bill does. That's what the bill does. Any questions of anybody? Okay, all right. I'm going to ask if you're opposed to 505 to wave your hand on the chat or wave your hand at us so we can see it. Okay, nobody opposed, so that passes. Title sufficient do pass. Chuck, do I need to go back to 942 and say title sufficient do pass proposed committee sub? Got it, okay, all right. Okay, just a couple of 2 or 3 more bills. Ladies and gentlemen, these are very fairly simple bills. House Bill 74. This just extends the repealer on the 911 telecommunication services. It allows them to continue to do what they do, receive monies and do the things that they do. It's just simple repealer bill. It extends it out to July the 1st of 2024. It's just an repealer extension on a repealer. Any questions on that? Okay, here again, I'm gonna ask if you're opposed, if you will, wave at us or wave your chatty hand. What's that called? Okay, all right. Okay, I don't see any opposed, so we're gonna say, title sufficient, do pass House Bill 74. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna call up House Bill 91. This is a bill that we've been working on for the past couple of 2 or 3 years. I know some of you may be real familiar with it. Back in 2016, this legislature passed Senate Bill 2362, which removed a lot of your special fund agencies from a special fund status to a general fund status. There continues to be a lot of issues with agencies who were totally special fund at the time, raising fees, sustaining themselves. Now that money's flowing into the general fund and us not appropriating enough back for their operations out of their fees that they raise. So what House Bill 91 does is simply attempts to put the Public Service Commission, which they have asked for, to be a special, go back to special fund agency status and not a general fund status. I fully support 100%. I think it's good policy to do this. They are raising their own money. We're taking that money, we're putting it in general fund, and then we're not giving them enough to operate. So I think this is a I think it's a very good piece of legislation and one that we need to continue to try to work. We tried to do it last year, got it out of the House. As Representative Jeff Smith used to say, the House of the Lords killed it down there. So, but I think it's a good piece of legislation, and I think it's one that we should keep alive and keep moving and try to press forward on. And that's what the bill does. Any questions on House Bill 91? Okay, no questions. Any opposed? Wave your hand. Okay, don't see any opposed. All right, we'll say title sufficient. House Bill, new pass House Bill 91. Okay, House Bill 108 is a double referred bill. This is the last one we'll be calling up today, committee. Wireless Communications Commission. Currently, right now, they are under the Information Technology Services, and they have been since their inception in 2005, okay? And when they were developed, and as you know, the Wireless Communications Commission is the commission that controls the MIS-WIN system. All of the towers and things that allow law enforcement, first responders, and everybody else to communicate with each other statewide. It's a multi-million-dollar system that we have, legislature has put a lot of resources in over the last 15 or 16 years. But right now, as far as back office procedures, things like that, they are still under ITS. I feel, and they tell me, I feel that they have matured past that. They should be their own standalone agency. Wireless has assured me that they need no additional funds to do this, and they need no additional pins. They just need the flexibility to be able to, when they receive invoices, that they can go ahead and pay them. They don't have to turn them into ITS and wait for ITS 3 or 4 months to pay them. More or less, it's a smart business move to allow them to operate as long as, to let them continue to operate and be autonomous. There's no, obviously we're not changing anything as far as their reporting restrictions or anything. We're just moving them out from under ITS and giving them the flexibility to operate standalone, which I think they can do a lot more efficiently. And this bill is double referred to appropriations, so it is a double referred bill. Here again, I think it's good policy. I think this commission has matured past the point to where they need a big brother overlooking them, telling them what they can do, because they do an outstanding job in keeping the MIS-WIN system up each and every year. And that's what the bill would do. Are there any questions? Okay, I don't see any. So again, I'm gonna ask if anybody's opposed to wave your hand or signify otherwise. Okay, and we're gonna say title sufficient, do pass House Bill 108. That's all I have today. I really appreciate y'all tuning in, and I will tell you that if any of you have anything that you want to talk to me about that we passed today before we come to the floor, please feel free to contact me. I appreciate you turning in, and I'm going to say that we rise and report.